Oh, Jimmy, we are back. Weekly show is back. You got your Iowa stuff on. We are ready to roll on a fantastic Saturday. It's great to
Go
be
Hawks!
back.
Go Hawks!
Okay, all right. Okay, good. So yeah, that's fantastic. Did you score a touchdown? No, you didn't. All right. So here's the thing. Like we are. I'm excited to be back. Badgers played last night, so we got to win. The weekend's good at this point. I don't have to worry about football until tomorrow with the Packers, and then that could be a whole disaster. Why don't we talk about this for a second? You want to get me fired up? I was in Missouri this week. Warrensburg, where am I at? My Warrensburg. These people in Warrensburg, Missouri yesterday, I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to a lot of places, but the energy in that room, I'm like I was, and I don't think you've been there because 10 of the 400 would have remembered you, but like they were incredible. They were unbelievable. They were phenomenal. And I was so excited. But anyway, so I was in Kansas City. Can we talk about Kansas City for a second? Because
the airport, brand new airport,
yeah,
or the ribs.
We're going to talk about all of it for a second because the airport's phenomenal. They went from literally the worst airport in America to it's one of the better airports I've been in all year. So, but here's the thing. Kansas City people are like, they're all in on their football. And I'll tell you why. You get off the plane, you get off there's Chief stuff everywhere. And then I was driving around and I went to Jack Stack to get some barbecue, right? And so I go into Jack Stack, and there's this big sculpture of like a bull or a cow or whatever it is out in front. Yeah. Things got a Mahomes jersey on. They're celebrating this cow that they're about to like cook. You know, I mean, like, this is the problem. And then I thought, well, it must have been a one-time thing. Then I drove to Warrensburg, and I'm sitting in Warrensburg, and I came out of the hotel, and I'm driving along, and there's another restaurant with a big cow in front and a Mahomes jersey on the cow. I mean, we're talking like 20 feet, like huge structures with these cows. It happened 3 times when I was driving. They had these Kansas City jerseys on these cows that they're about to cook. What's wrong with you, Kansas City? What is wrong? Like, this is the best. It's the best barbecue. Let's be real honest about it, right? Like, it's so good. It's so good. But what's with the jerseys? I don't understand the jerseys. I just don't get it. Like, what's going on there? I mean, have you seen this stuff? Jimmy, have you seen this stuff?
Yes. And that means somebody would have had to have actually made that specifically for that cow because it has to fit. I mean,
it's got to fit. The jersey was fitted. One just said Kansas City. That wasn't fitted, but the one with the jersey, like that cow could have played on Sunday, man. Like it was ready to roll. So I mean, I'll tell you, I had the best time in Warrensburg, and one of the things that was really cool about being in, I'm actually going back to Missouri on Monday, Kirksville, Missouri on Monday. So I'm here, then I'm going back, and people are so incredible. I mean, the people in Missouri are absolutely phenomenal, and I've just been so unbelievably humbled to be there with them.
Joe, you know it's going to be a good show when my son chimes in on the show. That's going to be a good show. He's talking smack, Joe. He's asking you a question.
He's talking smack. I haven't seen it. Where is it? I gotta find it. I gotta find it. Comment
chat box. He's talking smack. He's talking smack. While you're looking that up, Joe.
Okay. Listen. Can we talk? It's the guy. Listen to this guy. I just saw it.
Joe goes. I go to see something. Joe just talks
about back over. Not at all. Like Sparky gets a job with the company now. All of a sudden, he's gonna chime in and start yelling at me. Okay, all right. This is what it's all about. All right, AJ. I see you, big man, getting married and everything like that, getting a job with the group, and then all of a sudden, here we are. Let's be honest about what's happening around here. Okay, so it's good. It's good to see you, AJ. You pop on whenever you want, boss. I see Frank's here. I was with Frank's group this week too at the Buckeye Career Center. They were phenomenal, like unbelievable people.
Frank,
listen, he didn't even show. Frank didn't even show up. He was doing something more special apparently because I was with his group. He's like, "You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine." He didn't even show up. He shows up every week to this thing, Jimmy. He's always here. And I work with his group. He's not even around. I don't know where he was. I have no idea. He was probably on vacation or something like that. This guy. So Ohio was great too, but I made the mistake of I was in Ohio this week too with the Ohio's personnel administrators, HR people. I made the mistake of wearing blue and gold. I always wear blue and gold, but all of a sudden that turned into a thing. Like, is that Michigan? Yes. Is that Michigan colors? I'm like, no, it's the book that you have in front of you right now. That's what it is. It looks like Michigan colors. No, it's not. It's not. I don't like them either. Then I said, I don't like you guys either. They've been like, I don't like Ohio State either. You guys beat us every year too. So either way, I'm in trouble.
Joe, you know how sometimes we look at best food in America, best airports in America, right? All these kind of things. And we know this. And so this week I was in Gwinnett all week in Georgia, and I'm telling you, they are the best dressed in America.
They are.
I have never seen wherever I go. These are the best dressed people in America. I'm telling you, I was so impressed. It was awesome stuff.
I can't go there, man. I got one outfit. I literally have one outfit.
Joe, you can't go there because if you show up with your outfit, they're gonna laugh you off. They're gonna laugh you off.
I certainly can't go there for multiple days, Jimmy. I mean, let's be really honest about that. I can only change the tie twice. That's all I got. And if I could keynote in a hoodie, man, I would. I actually thought about it. I thought, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy a bunch of hoodies, and then I'm gonna just put their logo on the hoodie and just wear it, and then just give it to them when I'm done, just so I can wear a hoodie every time I keynote. And I actually did it. I did it a couple times, so I've got a couple events coming up that I'm actually going to wear the hoodie with their hashtag.
Your luggage didn't make it to the airport, so I think you've already done that. I had to wear one time I had to wear an assistant superintendent's clothes. He gave me his pants, shirt, tie. I just wore his outfit. He just gave me
that's amazing. I hope he was well liked. He's like, oh no, he's.
My favorite was in Utah, though, when I had to go to Walmart and get the Wrangler jeans. The Wrangler jeans. That was the look that day.
Right. Yeah, that's the way that it goes. I love it. The amount of people that are in Walmart that don't know what they're doing in Walmart, they're just walking around looking for stuff, is unbelievable. Like, you don't go to Walmart for something specific, except if you're buying Wrangler jeans because you don't have any clothes. You just go start walking around like, I probably need that. Like, what's that? Like a hairbrush from the 90s? I'll take that. That's probably one thing that I'll need at some point. I don't know. Like, it's just amazing. And I do it too. I walk in, I'm like, I'm going to grab this thing. I walk out with 19 things. I don't know what happened. I have no idea. It's like going, Costco's the worst for me. I go to Costco. I'm like, I'm getting one thing, like we get some chicken wings or something like there. And then the next thing I know, I walk out with like 9. I got like 3 carts, and the lady's like, "Hey, you guys having a big party?" Nope, nah, just a family. And thanks for the judgment. We appreciate you. All right, so hey, I'm gonna tell you one other thing about. Go ahead. You wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, what are we talking about today?
So here's the thing that's really interesting to me about this week. We talked a lot about one of the things that we talked a lot about. I got a chance to talk with the full group in a couple of places that I was in, but I also got a chance to talk to administrative teams. And one of the things that I think we need to be really cognizant of as leaders in spaces is, what are we doing to build up the people who lead other people in these spaces, right? And you were there in Gwinnett all week too, talking to leaders about how to lead their people. And I think there's 2 constructs that I think we want to talk about when it comes down to this stuff. And one is, how do we help those leaders become better in the space with those that they lead? But also, how do we help the group collectively as a whole move forward so they don't feel like they're isolated when they're trying to lead, if that makes sense? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I always kind of go back to Joe, like, just look at all the schools we work with, look at all the leadership teams, and there are certain things that come out of these, right, that replicate themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so one thing I always go to is, so what is the purpose of any admin team? Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of the admin team? Obviously, is it to lead the organization? Is it to grow and develop people? But one thing I do know for sure is that we as admin teams have to perform at high functioning as a high-performing or high-functioning team, right? We know this, right, for so many reasons. Now, there's also this. We know this, Joe. We can go into schools and there's one person trying to run the whole school. They don't have any assistant principals. They don't have any, ADs. They're the one-man show or the one-woman show. And so it is still important, though, if they are in isolation like that they have to surround themselves with somebody that has to be part of that team, right? Yeah. So whether that's a counselor, maybe, could even be the secretary, could be maybe they have some sort of coach, like a literacy coach or behavior specialist, or maybe it's someone who aspires for administration, but to surround ourselves with people who can be part of our team. Because I do think it's important to come together regularly, formally. We talked a little bit about this last week, in order to be focused on what are the big rocks, what's the school
Right.
improvement plan, what are the initiatives that are going on. But I think one of the biggest issues I see, Joe, is, or at least I would say is maybe even a concern that I have, is that I worry that these teams do come together and behind closed doors, and again, they're not doing it with bad intentions or like in secrecy, but what they're doing is they're coming together and they're trying to solve all of the problems for the school.
Yep.
And I know why they do it, because they feel that is the responsibility. They feel they're servant leaders. So whether I'm at a central office organization and watching a superintendent trying to solve the district's problems, or a building principal trying to solve the building's problems, or a teacher trying to solve the classroom problems, how do we more intentionally create processes where we give people a voice to slow us down? And how do we then scale that, right? So to me, if it starts here in the office, right, and we're trying to implement some change, or we're trying to maybe monitor some sort of learning or some initiative that's going on in the building, how do we scale that? And I'm still a believer is that we should begin with our building leadership teams. These are supposed to be our best people in the building. And rather than try to go to this way so quickly, is what would happen if we scaled it first with, let's start with the admin team. Are we modeling that? Are we able to do whatever it is we're asking others to do? If we took it to a building leadership that has 6 people, 8 people, 10 or 12, can we first start with them and then see if they can implement whatever it is we're trying to do at a high level or at a standard we expect? Because if we either can't do it as a building leadership team or we can't do it as an admin team, how are we ever going to take this to scale? And so I think it gets watered down very quickly. And then what happens is it creates all sorts of equity issues. We've got some teachers doing it, some teachers not. And so that's what I consistently see when I'm, doing walkthroughs and buildings. And so how do we begin to work through that? And what does that look like for us as the admin team? And why is that so important? So again, to me, it's what are the processes that we're using? And not just the process that we're using, but again, to try to get out of what we've already discussed in the past shows is how do we get out of trying to fix all these problems?
Yeah.
And so one thing I do notice is, well, I'll come back to that. I'll let you respond to that. And then there's one thing I have on my mind about that as well. So
I think one of the things that we have to understand is, and we keep coming back to it, is what we model is what we get. So if we as the administrative team are putting so much stuff out there for people to try to grasp onto, and we don't know what the reactions are going to be for each of those things, 2 things happen. The first one is they get overwhelmed. But the second thing that happens is we don't know what works anymore, right? Because the more that we just do stuff, the next thing you know, if something works or doesn't work, then you're like, wait, what was the one thing that we changed 10 things? Like how, what are we going to, which one worked? And so we, the idea that we try to keep in mind when I work with groups is, first of all, we use that multiplier approach. What are 2 things that you're doing really well right now that you want to make sure that you can continue? And what's the framework to make sure that those things continue? And then now what's the one new thing that we're going to do? And how are we going to make sure that we implement that with fidelity? How are we going to make sure that we put ourselves in a situation where we can come back to it on a regular basis to see if it works? But when we start trying to do that with all of these things, everything gets muddled together. And we do this to people all the time. And I'm guilty of it as well. I think a lot of times the initiatives that we implement in schools oftentimes aren't even about us. They're something that we've been told to do as a district or as a state or as a nation or whatever the case may be. And when you put yourself in that situation, the thing I think it kind of comes back to, those things are going to happen. Like, that the district is going to say we have to do this. That the state is going to say that we're going to have to do that. Whatever this and that are. But when this and that become the things that you have to do, and then you try something that you want to do, now all of a sudden you've got 3 new things that you're trying to put on. And so we got to be real cognizant about how we can either combine that stuff or understand that, when we have initiative, this whole initiative overload is legit. Like, it's a real thing. And a lot of times we're putting our people in really tough positions because of the amount of initiatives that we're trying to get out there. And that doesn't put our admin team in a good situation either, because all they're trying to do is implement what we've asked them to implement with their groups. And if that's the case, now they're in a tough position, because that they get to that point where somebody asks them, well, what are we doing this for? Why are we doing this for? And then they're stuck. Because if they don't truly believe in the direction that it's going, but they were told that that's the direction that we're going, now they have to answer that question to their staff member. And they either the answer is, well, we've got to get this thing going and it's just going to be great for kids, or the answer is the district told us that we need to do this.
Right.
Or the state told us that we need to do this. And then now you're like, now you got people fighting on now because that person that you talk to and say that the district needs us to do this, now that person's going back to their group and having that conversation with them about, well, Joe doesn't want to do it, but the district said that they need to do it. So this is what we got to do. And now you're like, you got to find, now you're battling. That's why you put people in the middle of all this stuff too. I think sometimes if you're the district leader in this space and you can say to the whole group, this is the direction that we need to go because the state's requiring X, Y, or Z. So when you have questions about this, what we have to do, come to me. But when you have stuff that we're doing in the building level, that's the principal. And I've entrusted our principals to make sure that they move forward with this because we've been told that this is what we have to do, and that's okay. And I believe in it, but that's on me. So come to me with that. Anything else from a building perspective, let's talk about it there.
Yeah, we got to protect our people a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? The truth of the matter is, and Joe, you know this, I mean, sometimes the superintendents are also in a bad position.
Absolutely.
It's either coming from the board expectations, it's coming from, maybe it's coming from the state or whatever. So it's actually coming top down to them as well. So, but I think that's why that it's important to the narrative of explaining the why and where it's coming from and asking for help and support and all those types of things. But if everybody understands where it's coming from and why it's coming from, whether we agree with it or not, right, at least we're not sitting there turning around and going around the perimeter and they people to death. So
yes,
so it is important. But for the superintendents, what I would say to them is just to be really intentional on how are they running their meetings, to give their principals voice. The principals know that the issues the superintendents are creating for them. They don't. They know they don't mean to. I don't think anybody means to. But if we can't create a team, again, I'm going to go back to the high performing team. And so one of the things I would encourage all of our soups, all of our principals, all of our teachers, because again, if you look at it systemically, all of us are responsible for somebody, right? But when we bring people together and we want to get right to the business at hand, and we don't focus on those relationships, we don't really know each other. And it's important because I see this over and over. I mean, we have teams, Joe, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in a school. We have teams that it's clear to me that the tension in the room amongst the administrators is not good. Right. There are people who don't like each other. They don't talk. There's little cliques in between admin team members. And that is not good for us. And ultimately, I'll just say it. I think that's the principal's responsibility to create that team, right? That sense of team. But the problem is sometimes they don't know how to do it. And again, so we don't blame them, but it is our responsibility. Well, it's the same thing for a superintendent. Totally. You can't have principals out there competing. They're not working with each other. They're actually gossiping about each other. There's jealousy between buildings or between levels. There's high schools blaming middle school principals for all their issues. There's middle school principals blaming elementary principals for all their issues because they're not preparing the kids. And so we have to be able to see that. So it's interesting to me. So, Joe, I think it was about a month ago, I was in a building and I'm walking down the hallway and I was actually going to go to this admin meeting. So I took this picture of this poster on the wall and it was a PBIS poster, right? And it says on there, respectful, responsible, ready, right? And then right above it, it says excellence. So I took the picture and I go into the meeting and they had their meeting. They were in there probably for about, I don't know, probably about 20 minutes or so. And he turned, the principal turned to me and says, well, because he had already introduced me and all that stuff. And he says, so Jimmy, what are your thoughts on what you've observed up to this point? And of course, there now I'm in that quandary, right? Like, do I really say, or how much do I say? So I said, well, let me just say this. So I took my phone, I turned around, I showed them the picture. I said, here's my question. Are the adults in this building living this?
Yeah, respect.
Because I don't know how we expect our kids to do this when we're not doing it as adults. Yeah. And so we have all this PBIS for kids. Well, where's the PBIS for the adults in school, people? Right. I mean, and so again, it sounds so simple. And we know this, Joe. We all know this. But I think that's where I worry is because the adults in the buildings are going 100 miles an hour. They're all on fire. Every adult's on fire right now. I mean, it is that time. It's that time, right? September 23rd. So for the next month or so, they'll be on fire for a while. And We have to remember when we're on fire, then every teacher's on fire and every kid's on fire. And then we wonder why we're all running around elevated. So, but my point is this, whether you're a superintendent, a building teacher, or a building principal, I think we have to slow down and we have to be really intentional. And we know this again, because we say it all the time, but how are we building relationships? How are we really building trust with our people? And how are we modeling that for other people? And then how are we replicating it? And that's why I think it starts with leadership. We have to model that first at our faculty meetings, superintendents at the principal meetings, teachers at the classroom with the students, is how do we be intentional to really build, because all those stories, when we take time, to me, that's where people start understanding the stories. And then they start understanding, well, now it makes sense. Now I do understand why they behave the way they behave. I see where it comes from. I give them grace. Now I protect them. Oh, if you knew Joe's story, you'd understand why. And now we're protecting people. So again, it's so important that we build that really high performing team, but that has to start. We have to build relationships with our own people, build our own trust. But there are people who will still say, it takes me a while to trust people.
Yes.
So I'm really guarded, and you can sense it because they will not participate. They will not really say what they're thinking. They pull back, and then there's somebody who's just so direct that it shocks the rest of them in the room. And so they just don't say anything. And now no one's getting a voice, and we're just sitting there, and one or two people are dominating the meeting, and then we go do whatever those one or two people are talking about.
Correct.
That's what I keep seeing over and over.
So the question for me then is, how do you, we talk about, I mean, we're still at 30,000 feet here, Jimmy, let's be honest.
Yep.
We're talking about how everybody needs to be trustful. We need to, we need to trust, we need to work with each other. We need to help. So the question becomes, how are we doing it? So one of the things that I think is really important in terms of the how from a leadership perspective, the first thing is consistency in your interactions. So when they know what they're going to get from you in an interaction, it changes the way that they walk into that interaction. Meaning, if they come to you with an issue and you fly off the handle for one issue, but then they come to you with another issue and you're real calm about that issue, now all of a sudden they know that one's going to hit you harder than the other. So they're going to have a harder time coming to you with one type than the other because they know of your reaction to those things. If your reaction is consistent and it's thoughtful and you're always following up, you're going to build trust in that capacity a little bit more. So the consistency from a leadership lens is really, truly important. The other thing that we need to understand from our leadership group is, how are we building each other up so we don't feel like we're isolated and alone? Because when you feel like you're isolated and alone, oftentimes you feel like you're painted into a corner. And then your guard is up when you're coming out of that spot. So we want to build some momentum for each other because nobody's building momentum for us. So an example, the how for us would be, what if during your administrative team meetings, you were just talking about how, people are on different pages and everybody, they don't get along or whatever the case may be. You don't have to be best friends with your administrative team. That's not what you're asking. What you're asking is how you build each other up along the way and make sure that you can trust each other. So one of the things that you do, one of the things you could do is at your administrative team meetings, what if one person, not all of them, like there's 5 people on my team. What if one person at that team shared a story about one of their staff members? Okay, so one person shares a story that's, something that's going on that they thought is really cool. They were in a second grade classroom and this is what they saw, right? So let's say that the elementary principal shares that to the entire district team. As soon as the elementary principal shares that with the group, right? What if the rest of us made a commitment that before the next administrative team meeting, we're all going to make contact with that second grade teacher to make sure that that second grade teacher knows that they were being talked about, but also knows that they were being talked about by the elementary principal. So now we're building the elementary principal. We're building the person doing great work, and the person that we talked to about how the elementary principal is talking about them. Now that person knows that the administrative team is on the same page, right? So now we've created some momentum for the individual in that space that can also often feel isolated and alone in that space. I think we got to figure out ways that we can take care of each other in these spots. And often it doesn't happen.
Yeah, Joe, this week, like we said, I was in Gwinnett. One of the principals did a really nice job. So when I went in, she started the meeting with all her principals. Is they every principal, I believe it was 5, wrote 5 note cards. So she started the first 10 minutes of the meeting. So obviously this is a routine. They walk in and they just sit there and in quiet time just write notes to staff members. Yeah. She's got a roster of the entire staff. So they make sure that eventually over time here, probably in the first couple of months, every staff member is going to get a personal note from the administrative team. And
Right.
what I really liked about it wasn't just, hey, we're so grateful you're here. It was very thoughtful. So they
Yes.
really, really knew their teachers to be able to identify a specific thing that they really valued and appreciated them about. And one of the conversations we had afterwards was, hey, this would also be a great activity for your building leadership team to do, to
Correct.
start that meeting off the same way. So it isn't just coming admin to teacher, but then the teacher to teacher from the building leadership team to the staff. And then, by the way, what if we just had all the note cards in a basket in the center of a table when they come to the faculty meeting? You could start your faculty meeting the same way, and you could either do it about each other's colleagues, or you could actually have them write them for children, or for families, or for students, or for other, any member of our staff. So again, those are the things I'm talking about, taking it to scale and replicating these things, because it does make us slow down. And people do that. You've said this before, Joe, when they're writing the note, they're in a good place.
Correct.
They're smiling. They got positive thoughts going on. And so we're really being intentional there. I want to go back to what you said earlier, Joe. You said the consistency, the thoughtfulness to keep them out of the isolation, and all those are absolutely, I agree with all those. I was also thinking about this, just the clarity also of expectations, right? So the clarity, the consistency to me is the behaviors, but the clarity is the expectations of what do we expect them, and how do we communicate that, right? So how do we communicate our expectations, and then how are we being consistent with that? And so those are the things I think about. All these C words are always great. There's like collaboration, communication, consistency, clarity, all these types of things. But I do think it always starts with, what is our vision? What is it we're trying to accomplish? And how are we communicating that? And are we being consistent in how we implement these things?
Yeah.
And then what does that follow-up look like? And we've talked about the circle back, because the circle back is a really powerful, it's a community builder. It's a connector. It's the way we connect. There you go. There's another C. The way we connect with people in terms of just that circle back, to be really intentional with the way we're doing things in a building. So
I think it actually is probably the biggest component. Let's be really honest, because if someone says something to you and you don't follow up with them, it just goes out into the wind, and then they struggle with the trust to tell you something again. Even if you go back and just say, hey, I just checked on this, it's not going to work, or whatever the case may be, at least you went back and had the conversation, and they're not out there wondering what the situation is going to be. So I'm at my best when I know I've had these conversations and followed up on all of the conversations. I'm at my worst when I walk past a room and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot to touch base with that person on this thing. And then it's like, you don't even want to go back into that room, because it was supposed to be 3 days and now it's been 6 days, or it's supposed to be a week and now it's 3 weeks or whatever. And it just feels weird. And that's on me. That's on me as the leader. We got to figure out ways that, we can be consistent with that. And I want to go back to the one thing you said about the notes, because I think we want to make sure that we give you the concept, but let's keep talking about the how, and let's keep talking about like the logistics of how we can get better and what we can do like tomorrow. Right. And I think you made a really good point that I want to make sure that everybody hears, all 4 people that are watching and listening. I want to make sure that you and AJ.
Did you say 4?
It's got to be 4.
3 of them are our family, Joe. 3 of them belong to us. Just remember that.
Well, I see Travis, I see Tom, I see Carolyn, Frank. So we got people. We got our people. I love these people.
I sent Frank $100 check and asked him if he'd join the show.
Don't say that, my gosh, because we're gonna Tom and Carolyn are gonna want that too. Travis is probably already asked about it. Anyway, so we get into this how piece. So the thing that was that I thought that I want to make sure that we circle back on, because it's in it's what we want to do logistically in the meeting. You mentioned, the writing of the notes, and have a list of people, that everybody gets a note by the end of the year. And I understand that, and I believe in that. The one thing I think we got to be real cognizant of is, not putting the pressure on where like, it's going to be this person we're going to write a note to this week, or this person we're going to write a note to this week. Because if they haven't been in that space to see what that person does in the last week, that's where it turns into, you're an amazing person. Right? Like, think that's, instead of, this is what I saw and this is why you're incredible, it turns into, hey, we love having you here. And that doesn't do anything. So, when people get the notes, when they get the conversation, and sometimes it's not even a note, Jimmy, it's not. When you make a commitment as a group to say, we're going to connect with this person by the beginning of next week, and you walk into their classroom, or you walk into their office, or you walk into their cubby or their cubicle or whatever it is, and you say to them, hey, we just want to let you know we were talking about you, and this is what was said, and that's really cool. You make that personal connection to make sure we build momentum for each other. So we're doing all of these C words, consistency and clarity and connections. But the one word that's outside of that C word that we want to make sure that we're moving forward is authentic. Please make sure all of these interactions are authentic. These notes are authentic. They come from a place that's not just checking the box on a wall, right? I mean, I understand that for clarity to see who we have to make sure we get a note to, but it's got to be authentic. And if it's not, it really reduces the impact for not only that note for that person, but for all of them. Because if the note is really authentic and specific with one person and it's not with another, those people are going to end up talking at some point. And you don't know when they're going to talk. And if it's like, well, I got this great note from the administration and they were in my classroom and they saw me building towers with kids and it was fantastic. And the person that they're talking to is like, the one that I got said, you're amazing. So I don't know. What does that mean? Right. You know what I mean? So now we're stuck. So I just want to make sure we come back to it, that it's truly authentic in terms of what we do. That's that's as important as anything is the authenticity.
Right. Well, the authenticity, because it says you're also investing time in people. So this is a relationship to you. It isn't just superficial. It's a deeper relationship because of the authenticity. And the thing is, think about it this way. After you write the note, will they keep it or not?
Yes. We saw that we talked about last week. That's exactly right.
Yep. It goes in the trash. It's probably just you're amazing.
Absolutely.
Now, here's the thing, Joe. Joe, look at the comments. Okay, first of all, we got Zeba coming all the way from Pakistan. She's all in. Okay, Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. She's like, hey, we got Wisconsin. Travis comes in. I'm waiting for Travis to throw his Penn State nonsense at me because he thinks Penn State's going to win the game tonight. But
he didn't stay.
He's right.
He didn't stay. He took off. He's gone.
I can't argue that. Speaking of writing notes, we got Josh Tovar on here, right? Josh Tovar. I mean, talk about writing notes. This guy, I don't. His hand must just be. He must have a bionic hand.
Yeah, that's right. He just keeps going.
Notes this guy writes. It's amazing.
Yep.
So, yes.
Unbelievable. We have so many.
Hey, Cricket, send me some gear. What about you, Costas? You haven't given me anything. Still waiting on a book. Frank, it's like $6. Go buy it. I need to put kids through college, Frank. Come on. I can't give it all away. Frank, I wrote myself a note, buddy. I am sending that book out today. I promise.
That's hilarious. Listen to you. Listen to you.
Then I got to send Justin T-shirts today. I got T-shirts.
My gosh. Look at you. You're out here telling people to buy the book.
Like Goodwill. I'm like a Goodwill store now, Joe. That's what I'm.
Stop
it. Goodwill store. That's what we are.
Culturized has sold like 120,000 copies in the last 6 months. Well, you know what, Frank? You need to go buy that book. It's $6. I mean, let's be honest about this stuff. Like, I just built 3 houses. Nah. I mean, seriously, come on. Let's be honest like that. Like, send a man a book, Jimmy. For God's sakes.
Joe, you told me I needed to raise more money because you don't have a job anymore. I'm just trying to help you. Okay? Just remember that. Listen, Jimmy. Listen, Jimmy. Joe.
Listen, Jimmy.
Joe, just like you can Jimmy too.
You need to stop talking right now. It's my turn to talk. I don't have a job, and that's fine. I understand. It's fine. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Ramen. I'm doing great with ramen. Let's be honest. And you think I'm wearing this sweatshirt because I like having a new sweat. I'm just wearing this is stuff that I'm getting from people. It's the only thing I can wear anymore. Right? Like I can't go buy clothes. So every time I go somewhere, I'm like, hey, you got a hoodie? Hey, how about a hoodie? Can I get a hoodie over here? What's that going to cost me? Can I get that hoodie? Right?
Does Joe need anything? Does Joe need anything when he comes? Water? Can we get him something? A hoodie. Can we get him a hoodie?
You got a gift card to McDonald's? Something, anything to help this guy roll out, man. Oh man, this is unreal. So I appreciate you. I appreciate everything I love this. This is always a highlight of my week. And honestly, this was a great week. The personnel people I had in Ohio were fantastic. I had Frank's group was fantastic. I had the group in Missouri was fantastic. Like it was a cool week that reminded me that leadership is so incredibly important. And if we can put ourselves in a situation to help other people with that process, I mean, how lucky are we, Jimmy? I mean, let's be really honest about that. Like, if we can help people in any way, then we're going to do it. But at the same time, we're so lucky to be in a spot that they'll allow us to do so. So, man, I'm going to let you shut it down for us today because we are 35 minutes into this thing, minus a couple of minute rants from me. But I truly appreciate everybody jumping on. And if we can continue to be consistent in our delivery and build up the people around us, we're going to figure out ways that we can move forward. Jimmy, take us home.
All right, we got 6 C's we're going to focus on this week, right, team? Everybody on this thread can be really intentional. Write them down so you don't forget them. I'll even make a little image. I'll have Keela make a little image and send it out to people. So number 1, we're going to try our very best to be clear this week, clear in our expectations. We are going to do our very best to communicate effectively those expectations. We are going to collaborate. We are going to work together. We cannot do this crazy job ourselves because we need each other's help to keep us consistent in the work that we're doing. But just remember how important those connections are and always circle back to show people how much we truly care. All right. God bless everyone. Thank you so much for joining Joe and I on the weekly show. We hope we see you again here next week. We'll be right back here next Saturday. And Joe is going to be sporting a new hoodie. That's what I'm predicting. Joe, every week I want to see a different hoodie. That's what I want to see. God bless everybody.